Hey, Jim Hart here, back at you from the Hart Law Firm. Today I want to talk to you about 5 reasons that people get divorced. I've been doing family law for approximately 13 years, and I've seen a lot of clients come through the doors, and I thought today I would share with you 5 of the major reasons that I see people getting divorced. So if you're on the cusp, you're thinking about getting divorced, and if some of these things resonate with you, my recommendation would be to go and see a marriage or family therapist, and I'm going to give you a link to that in the show notes, probably on the video here somewhere if I can figure out how to do that, so that you have that information and you can seek help if that's necessary. So I'm going to go through these pretty quick. Most of these you'll probably understand if you've been married for any length of time, and you probably have been married or you wouldn't be watching this video. So issue number 1 that comes up is that my clients aren't communicating with one another. And basically what that means is they're just not talking. Sometimes they might, when the kids are around, they may talk for the kids, but sometimes they don't even do that. Sometimes people just live in a house and literally don't say anything to each other. I don't understand how this can happen. I don't understand why this would happen, or how you can live with somebody and just not talk to them, but that is one thing that happens. And I've talked to a number of clients that say this is what's going on at their house. Their spouse ignores them, they don't talk to them anymore. If they try and force a conversation, it just derails into an argument, and it's just problematic. Clearly, if that's what's going on with your case, your marriage is on life support and you need some help. So don't wait until somebody decides to just move out or file for divorce, or file, well, in North Carolina you don't file for divorce, you separate and you file for all the other things that come before the divorce, and then a year later you file for divorce. But that's not what we're talking about today. Before you wait to get a lawsuit, or your spouse moves out without telling you or something like that, go see a counselor, go see somebody for help, because your marriage is not beyond saving. You and your spouse loved each other at one point, you can love each other again. It just might take some work on your part. That's number 1, communication. Number 2 is money. Money is a big issue. I see this happen all the time, and usually it's because one spouse is a spender, one spouse is a saver. Those things, it's like oil and vinegar. They don't typically mix. You need to work it out. You need to figure out what's going on there so that you can come up with a system that is going to make things work for both of you. If you are the saver in my marriage, I'm the saver. I like to save money, and but I can also be a spender too, and the same is true with my wife. We both have, we've got things we like to spend money on, and we've got things that we'd rather save money for. It kind of goes both ways, but if you are either the saver or the spender, you need to find a way to make sure both you and your spouse are on the same page when it comes to finances, your budget, and things like that. That's a big issue. If you don't resolve that, for some people, that's going to be the end of the marriage. Number 3 is just a lack of commitment. And really this comes down to how mature you might be or not be when you got married. If you got married at a very young age, a lot of young people, especially millennials these days, they are not used to taking things as seriously as marriage. They may think that they get married and they just get divorced. I mean, it's like switching jobs, right? Who needs it? If that's the situation you're in, marriage is a lifetime commitment, or at least it's supposed to be a lifetime commitment. And if you or your spouse is not mature enough to handle that commitment, chances are your marriage isn't going to work. If you want it to work, then you and your spouse are going to have to sit down and figure out how to get through your issues, how to argue constructively. And it all goes back to number 1, right? Communication. You need to communicate. If you're not communicating, you're not going to be able to resolve these issues. One rule that we have in our marriage is you don't ever go to bed mad. So if we're angry at each other at nighttime and we go to bed, you wake up the next day, you feel terrible, you feel crappy. You just rehashes the argument all over again with your spouse. So what my wife and I have done, we don't go to bed mad, even if it means some nights we have to stay up a really long time to get things resolved. We try not to go to bed mad. It happens occasionally, but we try to avoid that for the most part. This next issue is rare, but it does come up, especially when people are looking to get divorced, and that's drugs and alcohol, and somebody who's abusing drugs and alcohol. You might have somebody who smokes. I know I've got friends who, after we got married, one of my wife's friends got married, and a year later they were getting divorced. When we asked why, it was because she said that her husband, basically was coming home and smoking weed all day. And she didn't want to be married to somebody who was coming home and smoking weed all day. This wasn't college anymore. That can be a big problem. If you've got a drinking problem or your spouse has a drinking problem, that can be an issue. If there's other type of drugs involved, clearly that can be an issue. If you're not hearing, all these things kind of build on one another. If this is a problem, it also can affect your finances. It also can lead to a lack of commitment, and it also can mean that the two of you aren't communicating about what you want out of your marriage. So, or somebody could be upset, and so it leads them to drink, or leads them to go to the bar every night after work instead of going home because they don't want to go home and deal with a crappy marriage. So that all these things kind of feed off one another, and they all go back to number one, which is communication. So the last one is usually, I will say, actually not a cause of divorce. Most people do not separate because of this last one, which is adultery. That is not the issue. And I've talked to marriage counselors about this because we work with a lot of marriage counselors to try and get help for our clients, and they agree with me. Adultery is not the cause of a separation or divorce, but if somebody is unhappy in their marriage, they're going to try and find sex somewhere else, especially if they're not getting it in the marriage, and maybe they're not getting it because they're not communicating. There's a problem with finances. They're arguing all the time. They're not attracted to each other anymore because of all these issues. So they're not getting sexual satisfaction out of their marriage. So problems there. They're going to look for it somewhere else. And it might not be that they're even looking for sex from somewhere else. It might just be they're looking for companionship or someone to take an interest in them, and it leads to sex outside the marriage. That in and of itself is usually not the problem. The problem is what's going on inside the house. Anyway, that's an issue. So again, my name is Jim Hart. I practice law here in Cary, North Carolina, just outside of Raleigh in the Triangle. And if you have an issue, if you are struggling with some of these issues that we talked about here today, I encourage you to seek some help. I encourage you to take your spouse, and if you love them, if you want to save your marriage, go see a counselor. Do everything you can. That's the best legal advice I can ever give anybody, and it's free. Try and save your marriage. It will save you a lot of money in the long run. That's it for today. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button below, or the little bell that'll ding you when we post new videos. If you have questions or issues, or you want to talk to us, you can reach us at 919-460-5422. And we'd love to hear from you. If there's something we can do to help, we'd love to do that too. Anyway, my name is Jim Hart. I'm a Cary divorce lawyer. I appreciate you listening today, and we'll talk again soon. Take care, folks.